Good evening, sports fans. Welcome to the SiouxSports.com Monday night edition. I'm here with Tony Bonifero tonight. Dom DeLuca couldn't make it, had a family commitment, and we have a very special guest tonight, good friend of mine and excellent contributor to football in the Sioux. He's doing a lot of great things right now. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jim. Good to see you guys. Miss you a lot, but good to join you virtually in this capacity.
Yeah, Scott and I have spent a lot of time together. We were on the executive at Sault Minor Football, and pretty much about 3-4 summers in a row, we spent every Sunday and Monday about 8 or 10 hours sitting from about 3 feet apart from each other. So we got a lot to talk about. Scott, you've done some great things here in the Sioux. You've advanced your career to an excellent position, something that the city's very proud of. I remember you as a player. I'm a couple years older than you. I remember you playing even high school hockey, and the big fight you had with Don. Maybe that's why he's not here tonight. And all that stuff. I think then you went on to play Queens, won a Vanier Cup, played both ways there. You can see you on film in the Vanier Cup actually playing both ways, so we know it's true. So it's a nice thing. You made a great career for yourself. Excellent high school football coach. Excellent job running the defense for the Steelers. I can go on. And then you did fantastic things at Sault College with their sports program. And they're still doing great things there because of a lot of the work you did. So, Scott, what's the proudest thing you've done? Maybe more so from a Sioux aspect. What's your proudest contribution to Sioux sports? That's a tough question, I know, but what do you think your proudest moment is or contribution?
Oh, thanks, Jim. And you know what? The accolades are certainly not needed. I enjoy my time at the Sioux. I guess the proudest thing right now I can say before I answer your question is I can proudly say every day, wherever I meet people across Canada, United States, in my role here at St. Mary's University in Halifax, when people say, well, where are you from? My hometown Sioux will always be the Sioux. And even my wife, to this date, the Sioux is always home. Even though we're not living there, we're living in Halifax right now. The Sioux is always home. But I think there's so many proud moments. I think, you know what, our work together with Sault Minor Football and developing those young boys into younger men and teaching them the game and all the work and the hours behind the scenes that nobody sees. The hours that you put in, the hours that Tony put in, a lot of great people, Ryan Lillington, Trevor Zachary, a lot of guys historically, and there's Mike Pidgeon. There's too many to name here, but just being part of that, seeing that grow from ground up. And you remember, I don't even know what year they're in. I know there was a pandemic this year, so there wasn't a season, but just that. And I think one of my proudest moments being Siouxite is being involved with the Steelers staff and winning in a couple of national titles to represent the Sioux. I think one of the best games I think we ever played against Edmonton Stallions at home, and seeing all the faithful fans. I think we're close to 10,000 that day down at Rocky DiPietro Field, and winning that national title in easy fashion to bring home another national title to the Sioux. But just really for me, it's more the friendships and the people. I always tell my student athletes today, and everybody I see, is that your life is based on your relationships you build, and the more relationships you have, the better life you're going to have. So really, there's nothing in particular. I was very proud to win a Vanier Cup as a student athlete. To say and seeing the Toronto Star and see it on the Jumbotrons at the old Sky Dome. Now I'm aging myself because I call it Sky Dome.
Yeah.
But seeing hometown Sault Ste. Marie, that will always be my hometown. Proud of it. Parents still there, brother still there. So just really fortunate to come from the Sioux and the grit that Siouxites bring in, and that's something I try to apply every day. But it'll always be home.
Yeah. One thing I think of, Scott, when I think of you, and I think why we always got along so well, is because I coached a few times with you in the Sault Minor Football League, and we both shared the goal of getting kids to enjoy the game. We never tried to strategize up to win games. We always try to strategize up for kids to have fun. And you always shared that goal with me. And I think that really helped our Sioux football program. And that's one thing I always liked. And, we coached Ethan together. And is Ethan still playing football, Scott, or is he?
Yeah, they didn't have a season this year. He's going into his grade 12 year, so he's looking to play. As long as he stops eating me at house and home, he'll be good.
Yeah, well, that's not going to stop. So you better be prepared for that. I'll turn it over to Bono. He's done a lot of work and he's got a lot of questions for you. And I'll jump back in later. So go ahead, Bono.
Awesome, Jim. Thanks.
Grade 12. Holy cow!
You're old. You're old, Tony. Come on.
Where did the time go, man?
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right, Scott. Well, listen, I really appreciate you doing this. Our relationship. I've always when I played in high school. You were the head coach at Cora. You were, a very big, intimidating factor on the other end of the sidelines, and that was always how I knew Scott Gray. And then over the years, obviously throughout Sault Minor, we ended up becoming a little bit closer friends and spending all those times in the booth. And it was really nice to kind of get to know you on a different level and kind of watch your career progress to where you are today. So, first of all, congratulations, because you definitely worked hard and definitely deserve, where you are today. So well done there.
Thanks,
I just
Tony.
want you to talk a little bit about, growing up in the Sioux. You've talked a lot about the Sioux already, but how did growing up in the Sioux kind of help develop you into the man you are today, and kind of, give you the tools and strategies that you put into place every day?
Well, I think, you know what, one of the things, and everybody can say the Sioux blue collar town and everything else, which it is, the steel plant's still there. Got a great announcement today, so congratulations to the Sioux on that federal announcement. But really, if there's one thing, and I can relate to this looking backwards from where I am now to when I was in high school growing up and what I did, I think it just teaches you hard work. A lot of times the kids from the student athletes from the Sioux work hard. They may not be the biggest size-wise, the tallest or the fastest, but they'll work you and outwork most people out there, and it doesn't come easy. So I think it taught you applying yourself and putting the hard work in will get you results. And that's something that my father and my mother taught me from a young age. It was great growing up, seeing my dad referee both the Greyhounds and Lakers with Lake State, being an official linesman with the OCAA at the time. But you know what? It's just like I had some great mentors and great coaches along the way, just like everybody else does. And there's been the list of volunteers. You can do a whole show, and you probably can't even get it done in a full day of the volunteers in this. Yeah. But it's just teaching you a work ethic, and really just set some goals and work hard at it and see what comes out of that. That's something I apply for, and I look at kids and even recruiting and everything else like that. You're looking for kids that bring more than just talent. They bring a character with you, and I think the Sioux helps shapes our character, and it's something we're proud of. And at the end of the day, with that comes a little bit of grit, a little bit of toughness that I think doesn't get represented across the board and in a lot of communities. I think there's some tough, good kids that come out of the Sioux, and I was proud to be one of those myself.
Yeah, absolutely. When you played high school football here in the Sioux, obviously you had a really good career, and a lot of what you just said kind of exemplified you as a football player as well, right? And so, after you graduated high school here, you ended up going down to Queens. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what led to the decision to go to Queens, and then just talk a little bit about your career at Queens?
Yeah, sure. Well, it was a decision like every 18-year-old looking for the next step. And one of the things that interests me was always academics. Queens had a program that had a dual degree major, so getting 2 degrees for the price of one, so to speak, over 4 years. So I got both Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Physical Education. But in the day, I played for a hometown man. Doug Hargraves was my coach at university, born and bred in the Sioux, and his path, kind of funny right now, but he did spend some time in Halifax coaching at Dalhousie University way back when, before he went to Queens. So even for myself, he's passed away, but it seems a little bit of his kind of journey is kind of my journey too, as well, where you move around and you find the best bet. But you know what? It just seemed like the proper match at a time. You got to remember, this is before internet. This is before all the technology we have today. And I just looked at it as an opportunity that with what they had on their roster and what they had on staff there was going to help me grow as a student athlete, but also mature into my role where I could play sooner. And I was playing by my second year and going on to being a successful starter, playing a couple of ways and playing a number of positions, mostly an Ironman out there, that if there was a skill needed or a position needed to be filled for a week or everything else, I'd move away from my regular starting spot to fill that role. But successfully, a good set of teammates. And you know what? I don't say it too much, so I'll say it once in the show. We did win a Vanity Cup against where I'm working right now. It's kind of a full circle where, and I laugh with a lot of the St. Mary's alumni. Fall of 2019, it was fun. We retired or put in our Sport Hall of Fame Noah Cantor, who was a big defensive tackle at the time when I played, and all his teammates came in. So it was a good laugh to have us all in the same room. We hadn't been in the room in 30 years, and they were shaking their heads like, "How did you end up here? You beat us 25 years ago, and now you're running the show." But you know what? It comes down to the fact, like, I was fortunate in high school to have good marks. I'm working hard. What I commented early with school, but I also had some good people. I had Bill Paul, Barry Russian, John Cruikshank, and a whole other things. Freddie Russian, Claire Campbell. There's a whole bunch of individuals at that time up Wadding that coached in football. But even I played hockey, and Jerry Bumbacco was there. Gary James, some of those individuals that really shaped the sports scene in the 80s were great leadership figures for us as well.
So when you were at Queens and you had the chance to win the Vanier Cup, obviously that's just got to be one of your sporting highlights in your career. Just talk about what that experience was like. What do you remember about the game? Things like that.
Well, I think to set it up, we won the Vanier Cup in '92, and we kind of screwed up in '91. We lost in the national semi to Wilfrid Laurier when we were up big at halftime, and the wheels fell off. And that really taught us about, things were going great. It looked like we were on track to win that semifinal, potentially make our first Vanier Cup for the university in a number of years. And then the wheels fell off. And then as young men, and our coaching staff can take a lot of credit for this, they had to put back those pieces from a team that basically had everything in front of them and let it slip away. And we were very fortunate to go through a season next year and get it back and have that opportunity. So I think it's one of those special nights. I remember playing in the Sky Dome at the time and had all the people, and having my parents and family there, and a lot of different people from Queens making the trip up the highway in the 401 to Toronto. But it was just like, wow, this is kind of neat playing on that big stage. And you know what? At the end of the day, the stars aligned, so to speak, and by no means is St. Mary's a weak team. But that day, I don't think anybody could have beat us because we played very well.
Scott, I'm going to jump in here, Bono, for a second. Scott, what is it? What is a Golden Gale?
Golden Gale, I believe, goes to the heritage of Scotland, and it was a warrior. It was something like that. I really don't understand. I had a good teammate, Eric Dell from Sudbury, who played along defensive line with me, and our mascot was Boo-Hoo the Bear, and he thought he was a beaver for almost 4 years. So at the end of the day, it was kind of searching for an identity. We didn't wear yellow. We wore tricolor, which was blue, red, and yellow. So good memories, good fond memories. A lot of great teammates that have gone on to do big and better things. And it's still fortunate that with the day of social media, even though I haven't stepped foot on Queen's campus in over 30 years, and after I graduated, I moved on to the next stage of my life. But at the end of the day, the nice thing about some of the social media is there, you get to connect with guys you haven't talked to in 25, 30 years. And it's kind of fun that way.
So, Scott, obviously, talk a little bit about what you did after Queens and before Sault College. And, so you graduated from Queens and you ended up moving back to the Sault. And like I said, you did a lot of volunteering and you did a lot of work. What did you do after Queens?
After Queens, like a lot of people, I started working in Kingston. Wasn't all what I was cut out to be. And I was missing home. So I moved back to the Sault, did a number of different jobs, worked in a number of different places. But along the way, always had that giving back attitude. It's something I think Doug Harvey has instilled with me. Even when I was at Queens, we used to do a lot of summer camps and a lot of reach out events for local high school and youth. And it's just something typical student athletes at university do, where they help out in the summer camps, the learning opportunities for youth in the community. So I was like, I'll give it back. And, I had an opportunity because of Paul Kalbeck. He was moving on to do some educational work at Northern Michigan. So Cora was in need of a football coach. So this came on board and said, you know what, I was young. I was probably only a couple of years ahead of some of my student athletes, by maybe 3 or 4 years. So by no means it was my first foray into coaching, but I just poured my heart into it, worked really hard on it. I had a lot of great people on the staff that year, very small staff, but even guys that were playing with the Storm at the time that I ended up coaching later on, Andrew Johnson, Matty Tucker, and some of these guys were core guys that just kind of stuck around and helped out. And, it made something special of it, and, it grew from there. And from that, I was very fortunate because Les Kennedy was the director of athletics at Accor at the time. He gave me that opportunity, and I just used it as an opportunity to stay involved in more sports, whether it be basketball, track and field. But I always had a love of giving back, and that was part of it. And just seeing young high school students improve on a day-to-day basis was important. It's about the wins and losses. I always say wins and losses are not the goals. We always want to win. That's an understatement there. It's managing those smaller goals that can make you in a position to win are important. So really it shaped my life. And then down the road, being in my hometown, and at the time Sault College was looking for athletics coordinator, athletics director. At the time they didn't have the athletic director, and fortunately enough, I threw my hat in the ring, said, you know what, instead of volunteering all the time, why don't I put my hat in the ring and see if I can get paid to do this? And from there, worked with a lot of great people at Sault College to kind of reset the deck and take over from Tom Morrow, who moved on to Algoma University, and build something in our own image that was different and continue to be some of the sidebar things that you don't understand in athletics. Is, it's about winning and everything else, but also about enrollment, and increasing student capacity, increasing student needs. And I still remember at Sault College early on being there late at night and doing everything from refereeing an intramural ball hockey game to doing the eligibility checks. And then we grew it. We got some great people along the way, Steve McLeod, Michelle Morley at the time, and just grew from there, and they're still there. And then when I left, there was opportunity, and now Paul Rossetti's doing great things there in his hometown. So he kind of went full circle the opposite direction of me, where he left and went away for a while and then came back home. And once in a while, I follow up on to see how they're doing. Everybody had to deal with a pandemic, but it's great to see the college is still alive and vibrant and growing with the sports program. And it's really important. Even some of the stuff that Jay Hauslander helped to get off the ground, like people don't realize getting hockey back at that school was a big challenge. And we went through a lot of growing pains with that. And now they're at a point where, they win an ACHA title, Division III, a number of years ago. And it's really an enrollment driver for the school. So it's just basically, moving from a role of volunteering, giving up your time. And I still remember a long time ago, even with Sault Minor and its first go around, I still remember with Trevor Zachary and Ryan Lullington, some of the guys when we were first there, we were doing everything from running the bingos on the Friday night to lining the field on Sunday morning before the kids played, and coaching and having a great time. It was a great time to just mature and to grow up. And then fortunately for me, I had the opportunity to see my son benefit from it as well. So that was kind of a bonus as well.
So I want to talk. Oh, sorry. Yeah, quickly before we go on to your time at St. Mary's now, there's two things I want to talk about. First of all, quickly, is it's so funny because my first interactions with you, Scott, was when you were the high school football coach at Cora. And, Jim and I have talked at length about my interactions with Jim when I was in high school. My interactions with you were very limited that I can recall. And the reason being was you petrified us. So there's rumors that go around, and I need to put something to bed right now. Can you explain to me what your pregame routine was of burying things in the back lot at Cora? Was it before or after games? Because there's some legendary rumors out there. We won't go into all of them, but can you kind of talk about that? Is it true? Did you used to bury things in the back at Cora?
Yeah, and it started out as a metaphor or a simile to bury the past and move on to the future. And at a young age and to get the buy-in from the team. So we actually did physically bury things. And what the premise was to bury any issues we had from the game the week before, whether it was a win or loss. If something bad happened or something up them, or there was some animosity or some conflict in the team. A lot of time that happens. That's team sports. Not everybody, especially in football with the large numbers, not everybody's going to get along. It was just an opportunity to go on the back 40 at the old Cora field. And you know what? Put anything from the week before that we didn't want to move forward and bury it. So we did physically bury some stuff. And you know what? It was more, hopefully, the student athletes at the time understood or kind of captured the fact that we were burying whatever we didn't need for the next week. And we moved on to next week because there's past is the past, and it can be valuable, and it's great historically, and it's great to look back on good times, but you don't want it to be an anchor. So anything that would become an anchor to future progress, we have to bury. So yeah, we did bury some stuff.
I think that's an amazing lesson.
Well, let me jump in there for a second. Scott, how about when you wrote 2120 baby on your equipment shed at Cora?
Well, I think that goes back a lot of years, and unfortunately, another game where we probably played probably the fullest game until the last 10 minutes, and it got away on us. And you know what? Sometimes you have to make those reminders of those bad times to allow for us to excel in the future. So having constant reminders of things that went sideways in our past allows us to stay on task so they don't go sideways in our future.
True. I think it was a great lesson, because honestly, that's something that kids still talk about today. So just to kind of wrap up your Cora time, obviously Cora's football program has really taken off over the last few years, and they're doing really well and having a lot of success. back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you were there and you guys had quite a bit of success as well. I'm just going to give you a chance. Just talk about some of some of the kids that you had an opportunity to coach that really stuck with you and that really you feel like really helped kind of helped bring Cora along and some of the better players that you've had the privilege of coaching.
Well, I think you know what, and I don't want to go in too much detail because I'm for sure to miss somebody. Yeah. It's great to even catch up with these guys later on and see them with their families of their own and sons of their own. We talk about Sault Minor being full circle all the time. It was nice even to have a guy like Brock Dewar and coach his boys, or Brent Barnes. These are guys I coached when I was in high school, and like I was literally a couple years ahead of them. To coach their kids along with them was really fortunate for me. But I think like starting from the top, I think we had a good the cupboard was not bare when I got there. I think Coach Kalbeck and his staff did a good thing, and they had some success before me. But I think like when you talk about, I call it the three horsemen, we had guys like Darryl Wood, Jason Piercy, Otis Dolan, Derek Knott, just some key character guys. And three of those guys all won major awards that year when we won the city championship. Moving on, again, having the Ruley brothers, having everything, the Sean Carrs, the Jeff Rennisons, and a lot of these guys, because I was helping all the basketball, I see them almost 10 months a year, and that helped us get better because not only were we seeing them for a small microcosm of the school year from August to say October, I was seeing these kids and traveling with them, going to tournaments when I was helping coach basketball and coaching basketball. So it was good to develop relationships and seeing them being successful and making something out of their lives and being successful moving on is a great thing. But there's way too many to mention. And you know what? I still remember that first team. We weren't big, and we weren't big in numbers. We only had about 24 guys on the team. But everybody played tough. And to my point earlier about raising grit, they came with grit, they came with determination, came with heart. And really, at the end of the day, you can coach X and O's till you're blue in the face. If the kids and the students don't have heart, you're not going to get anywhere. So I think that's something that comes out in spades across all programs. I think, you know what Tommy Annett's done with the program is fantastic. I think Tommy Annett's building something that in the sport of football, he's taken to another level, because even at the university level, football is not a sport we play 4 months a year. Football is kind of a stop time in our training 12 months a year. So our guys are in the gym working out every day. Even this morning, we started back on the field again this morning. They're on the field at 6 o'clock this morning, getting ready to go. And you know what, getting ready for a fall season, that's 2 months away, but they're still prepping and getting ready. And a lot of that is fortunately because of some of the rule changes that happened in USport this year with summer contact, because we didn't have a season. We got to get these guys up to game speed because, you know what, they've missed a full season. And we're excited about August hitting and some of our recruits coming in and seeing them for the first time. Unfortunately, some of them are already here, so we get to work with them. But it's really about, you know, it's having a group of kids, having a support staff at Cora, everybody from Bob Carmichael, principal, Holly Wickett, to Les Kennedy, Gary Cormier, Dave Breskeson. These are all guys that put in the time and effort way back in the day and do the behind the scenes. And I know as a sports administrator how many hours are spent behind the scenes. And everybody only sees that product that happens for 2 or 3 hours a night, once a week, but they don't see what happens in behind. So it was great to see all that support, and it's great to see it even this day. Like, you know what? The high school landscape has changed a lot since me and Jim played, and now it's great to see the competition and everything going on. And I always said, and I've said this when I coached, I'll say this today, the toughest thing for a team out of the Soo is getting out of the Soo first.
Yeah.
Everything after that, not that it's easy because it does take hard work, but the hardest thing to do if you're playing high school football in Sault Ste. Marie is getting out of Sault Ste. Marie.
Absolutely. So before we go on to where you are now, I just want to ask you one question about Sault College. Obviously, Sault College, you know, it grew leaps and bounds under you, and that wasn't a tough job. I know you won't talk too much about it, but, you know, like anything, especially when you're working in your hometown, you're going to have a lot of critics and you're going to have a lot of people who are complimentary of what you do. And a lot of times people don't like change. What was the one thing that you accomplished at Sault College that was your proudest moment?
I think there was a number of things, and not to put anything high, but I think one of the proudest achievements experience-wise is, I can't remember the year, was the year we hosted the CCAA National Cross Country title. And just to host an event of that magnitude, having 600 runners coming in from all provinces in Canada, coming to Sault Ste. Marie for some of these student athletes from other schools and other provinces, this is their only time in their life they're going to be in a Sioux. And it was a chance for the Sioux to showcase. And using Crimson Ridge site and seeing everything that happened there, just the event, just a number of curling championships, everything else like that. It's just to see the students. And one of my highlights, people don't realize this, I still to this day attend graduations every year, and I don't sit on the main stage, and I don't put my cap and gown on. I kind of sit in the back row, and I just want to be there to see students graduate, because sometimes it's not an easy path for them, and sometimes it doesn't happen in 2 or 3 years like it's supposed to. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, when they graduate, that's a piece of paper, whether it's a degree or diploma, that nobody can take away from them. So that's kind of the proudest moment I have, is seeing those students graduate. And I don't need to be noticed about here, because it's not about me, it's about them. And that makes me proud. And to see them move on in life and see them be successful after, that's important to me.
So obviously, Scott, going from Sault College to St. Mary's, that's quite the jump, right? How did that process happen? And at what point did you really start looking and thinking, hey, you know what, this is a possibility?
I think what had happened is St. Mary's for a lot of years was going through a different period. The youth sports landscapes changed on everybody significantly. Strong history of the school, but they're looking for an athletic director. So I got approached and I started having a conversation. That's what it turned out to be. And sometimes in life, the easiest jobs to get are when you're not looking for one. It was just an opportunity for me to expand my career. I had a lot of good talks at Sault College, even with Dr. Ron Com, and had a good talk with him one day about the next stage in my career, and knowing him as a leader of people and being the president of the college in my time there. He's still there at the end of the day. He's moved in different roles and taken different opportunities. There's an opportunity that once it became more realistic, we had to explore it. It was me stepping up a level, getting to a program that had a lot more sports at a higher level, getting to a program that had a strong history, and really was at a point like a lot of the Eastern schools in certain sports, they were struggling. So it was an opportunity for me to expand my boundaries and come to a place and put some of the foundational pieces that I've created over my career and put them in place there. And it's still a work in process that we're doing here. But it's also, I say this to everybody, it's a labor of love. Never get paid for the amount of hours you do, but it's exciting. Different level full-time coaches, a lot more resources, a lot more scholarships, but also the same challenges. This is a business, and we all experienced last year not having sport, how important it is to get back to it. And the challenge now is how quickly can we get back to business and expand it. And some of the things, like for me, is we put a product on the field or the court or the ice that is worthwhile, and monetizing. I think a lot of Canadian universities got to look more at monetizing that model, similar to the States, where, you know what, if you want to see a Michigan football game, you pay a price. Well, if you want to watch St. Mary's Huskies play, you're going to have to pay a price too, because it's not for me and it's not about the money. It's about the effort and the work that student athletes and coaches do on a day-to-day basis to perform. So it's important, but it's been an adjustment for me, moving my family halfway across the country to a new city that we're not familiar with and everything else. I give them all the credit, because, you know what, they were willing to take the journey with me. It would have been a no stop if they didn't want to move, but they were okay with it. And as a family, we're learning this, and I'm still learning university. I'm 3 years in. I'm still not at the point where I want to be as a program, but we're getting there. The challenge is in Canada, it's a tough process. It's not the NCAA, but it is important in the fabric of an institution to have a good athletics and recreation program. And that's the same thing. I just have as much enjoyment watching our varsity Huskies play as I go out. I remember early in my career, a lot of times I would show up at intramurals and different club sports and not the high profile stuff. And some of the students and people involved, what's going on? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I just want to come here to experience it, because you know what? There's a lot of smart people in the world that got good jobs. I decided to stay in athletics, and with the good days and bad, there's still some really good days out there where, you know what, you get to be around student athletes as they develop through the good and the bad, and to see their success, both their failures, and hopefully guide them along their path. So, you know what? It was a challenge. It's an adjustment. Not a St. Mary's guy, which is different than the previous athletic directors over the history, but that's okay. I'll do my way, and my way is to get us to a point, not a traditional landing in the situation I experienced here, but we're moving past it. And you know what? I'm just developing myself as both a leader in my school and also a key member of the AUS, and working with my fellow ADs in Atlantic Canada to keep sport going. Right now, we're all working on a return to sport plan. So we're excited about the opportunity to bring sport back this fall.
So you kind of talked a little bit about the family, and I just want, so I kind of want to talk a little bit about that briefly. So you get this opportunity. You have a son who's about to go to high school, a really difficult time for a young boy, especially at that age, to move. You have a wife who's really well established here in the Sioux. Kind of, when you brought up this conversation with them and said, "Hey, you know what, guys, this is an opportunity I have," you know, talk a little bit about how that conversation may have went, and especially the effect that it had on Ethan and kind of his adjustment.
Well, I think you know what, it's a family decision.
Mhm.
I'm very fortunate to have my biggest supporters live under the same roof of myself.
Yeah.
For all the different things and different people I meet along the way, I still got the best support here. And at the end of the day, it was an opportunity for me. It was an opportunity for us, and we just made the best of it. Ethan is a very good kid that can adjust, and at the end of the day, be able to make the adjustment. And he's found some friends here and made a good job out here. But at the end of the day, I say thank you to them every day because it allowed me the opportunity to move across country, and it's been an adventure ever since, and it will continue to be an adventure. I think that's one of the biggest things as a family we look at is every week we take an opportunity to have some type of adventure. Even yesterday, pouring rain, we went to George's Island, which is in the Halifax Harbor. It was an old 1700s and 1800s fort I didn't even know existed, but we toured it yesterday and went on a little excursion. And it's fun to write the history. But the important thing for me, even when I was at Sault College, a lot of times when I would travel, I'd bring them along because they're part of the whole team here, and the team doesn't come with me. So it's great to see them at games. And you know what? The best thing for Ethan is sometimes he was just asking me the other day, he can't wait for sport to come back because he can bring a couple friends with him, come to a game, and I can let them go because I know they're in my facility, whether it be our rink, our field, or it's. And at least I know where they are, and I'll give them a drive home at the end of the day. So you know what? I give them a lot of credit because they've adjusted well, and it's hard. You know, we miss family. But at the end of the day, the nice thing about social media is we couldn't be there. Pandemic has this last summer would have been a normal trip home, and this summer would have been that same trip home. But it can't happen. We'll eventually get back, and we'll take a couple of weeks to revisit everybody in the Sioux. But the Sioux will always be home. We always call it home. And at the end of the day, they've been great along the way, and I can't thank them enough for the support they've given me.
I also, on a quick side note, I do think it's ironic that a Cora boy ended up at St. Mary's maroon and white. You know, now you're the AD there. So I just, I don't know.
No, it's you know what
reservation there about that.
well, we're these St. Mary's, not to be confused with the other St. Mary's.
Okay.
Or these St. Mary's, like the Ohio State. No, you know what? It's kind of funny is that I always think of myself when I put on some of my clothing, and we all know in the sport world, I don't think I own a piece of clothing without a logo on it. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I'm pretty comfortable playing on maroon, Jim, if that's okay with you and Tony. I know you guys work well.
That's great.
At the end of the day, you know what? I don't mind wearing the maroon. And at the end of the day, it's just one of those things where, you know what? You wear the colors proudly. And at the end of the day, you represent it going all.
All right. I'm going to give, Scott, I want to give you a little bit of an opportunity to kind of plug, what you have going there right now. I know that there's been a lot of changes going on with the programs and each sport. So I'm going to go over each sport just briefly. I'll give you a couple minutes just to kind of talk about each one if you'd like, and kind of the way, just how you're kind of trying to, revamp the programs if you are, or kind of reinvigorate them a little bit. So let's start with men's basketball. So, the men's basketball team, they've won the second most Atlantic Conference championships with 14. There's a really storied history there. They haven't won any since 2014, but, obviously there's been some reasons for that. Kind of talk about the men's program and where you see that going, in the coming years.
Well, I think, in men's basketball, the AOS historically is very, very competitive. So I think out of 10 teams in the league, that any one of those 10 can win any night of the week. That's the nice thing about the Atlantic University sport. In every sport, there's a lot of parity. There's not a big drop from the top to the bottom. But you know what? We've had our chance over the last couple of years. We made it to nationals. We had a tough draw a couple of years ago, picking off Calgary, the eventual national champions. We lose in the quarterfinals. And a good friend of mine who was the AD at Calgary, Jason Kurzweil at the time, we're having a lunch after the next day, and he goes, that was probably the toughest game of the tournament for them. They went on to win. So it's just, it's finding the right recruits, the right system. you know what, Atlantic Canada isn't a big population, so it's making sure that you keep your homegrown recruits here and some of the good student athletes in Atlantic Canada, but also doing a good job. The tough world about youth sports men's basketball is a transfer world. A lot of transfers flying around the country in different programs, everything else like that. I think the biggest challenge for us is this upcoming year is that what did this past year during the pandemic and the work that we put in, how does it pay benefits? But again, at the end of the day, it's going to be a grind. It's a 20-game season with a lot of travel. So it's just figuring out, okay, how do you get those points and how do you get to a point so you can get in the conference finals down at the Scotiabank Center in downtown Halifax and play under the big stage. You know what, for us, it's really good for us because we have one of the top teams as one of the last couple of years in the conference in Dalhousie, right up the street. So we'll play them a bunch of times, and hopefully Jonah Tassig, our coach, will get it going. He's got a couple of recruits coming in, a couple of transfers coming in. So you know what, the basketball world is kind of a crazy world at the youth sports level. So I wouldn't pick a winner, but I wouldn't pick any losers right now either.
Women's basketball. So, they won a title in 2016, I believe, was their last title. So fairly recent. They, very underrated. The history of women's basketball there has been pretty strong. They have struggled. They've struggled a little bit the past few years. Kind of talk about the women's basketball program and kind of where you see that going and the direction they're headed.
I think we got some bright future for our women's team. 2 years ago, the last time we played competitive and made it to the playoffs, lost in the quarterfinals, but probably with one of the youngest teams in the AUS. We got a whole slew of young ladies that are kind of all second years now because of the pandemic year. So they've gained a lot of strength and experience over this past off season and the pandemic year. And we're looking for big things. And you know what? Historically, Scotty Monroe, our coach, has done a great job. We're very fortunate for a lot of years to have one of the best women's basketball players in the country played for us in Justine Colley. And that young lady, you know what, was a difference maker there. So we're hoping with our youth and a little bit more experience that we'll be able to make a run. But again, like I said, it's a labor getting through the season. It's always tough in these 2 semester sports because so much changes between the first semester school-wise and second semester. And for us in our conference schedule, the second half in January and February is a really quick sprint. Playing doubles every weekend and seeing how we can get to the dance in downtown Halifax. But really excited about them. I think they got some youthful talent that's going to pay us dividends. And you know, at the end of the day, it's great to see the women's game growing. Even having a women's professional league that's being talked about across Canada is a great piece.
Women's hockey, pretty solid team. They've won their second most with Atlantic Conference titles with 7. They last won in 2018, but they've yet to, kind of get over that hump, and haven't been able to compete in a national championship game quite yet. What do you think? What do you think that the women's team needs to kind of get over that hump?
Well, I think it's a couple of key pieces we have. You have to get in hockey, and out of both men's and women's, play the longest grind. They have the most games at any sport at the university level. 19, we were ranked number 1. I ended up losing our conference final and didn't get a berth to nationals because of UPI, who beat the series before, was the host, so they got the host bid. But I think Chris Larod, our coach, is doing a great job. I think we got some good talent coming in this year, and I think, you know what, it's always a competition in the AUS. It's a tough grind. Even, you know what, local Garden River girl joining UMB is not going to be easy for us as well. It was okay when she was playing at U of T, but when Jana moves out here, it's a little bit different with the UMB Reds. So you know what? Looking forward, we'll be at the top there, and it's almost can you peak at the right time? We played probably about 7 exhibition games against Dal the off season, but again, Dal's improved because they got Troy Frayne as their coach now, who's the national team coach. So at the end of the day, it's nothing's easy here, but you know what, our girls have to come hard to work every week. But I think the influx of a couple new rookies this year will hopefully get us keep that top 10 ranking nationally, and like you said, push that boulder over the top and make a splash this upcoming March at PI at the Nationals. Hopefully we can make it to that dance.
Men's hockey, they've won 13 Atlantic Conference championships, but none since 2010. And even when they won in 2010, that was their first title since 1973. So it's been kind of an up and down thing with men's hockey. what have you been doing to help support the men's hockey team? And has that really, is that like a priority for you because of your experience in hockey, at Sault College?
Well, I think, you know what, we're going through a coaching change right now. So we have an interim coach right now with the pandemic. But in 2019-20, we actually won the last game ever played in USports at the national championships, the quarterfinals against Guelph. We won 5-1, and we're on a pathway to play Western in the semis and potentially set up a rivalry game against UNB in the final. But we all know what happened on that fateful Thursday evening where after you win a game, you're excited about making the semis and playing on Saturday. And all of a sudden, a half hour later, the tournament gets canceled because of COVID. So I think part of the reasons is I've been there that shows support and where we need to turn is we're fortunate enough because of a couple of alumni and donor donations that we opened our new Dauphin Center arena on campus. So the men's team have been playing off campus for almost 18 years down at that old Halifax Forum in the North End. But we opened our brand new Dauphin Center arena back in the fall of 19. And I think even having it right now, like this, literally right now, the guys on the ice every day, because we have ice in the summer. That's something with our old alumni arena where they didn't even play out of. It didn't have ice in the summer. So it's one of those things. And just getting them the supports and the efforts and making sure that they're developing enough. The men's hockey world is a crazy show because we're not dealing with your typical 18-year-old high school student coming in. These are all major junior A players that are coming out. And even last year, we played a number of exhibition games. As soon as the exhibition games ended, it was easy last year because our education was online. So a lot of our players that were graduating left to play in the AHL or East Coast League. And that's always the challenge with men's hockey is that constant draw for those students away from school to go back to pro hockey. So it's one of those things is, getting a coach in place is one of the priorities this year. And then building the program back. We were fortunate even to add as assistant coach for this year. John Greenwood, who was the assistant coach with the Mooseheads for the last 7 years, went to Memorial Cup with them and developed a lot of that talent. We've added him to our coaching staff this year to help our men enter this first season after a pandemic. And again, we got a lot of tough competition. There's not an easy game in our league during the week. These are probably the most quality hockey games you can see at University Sport. And you know what? You're dealing with a lot more mature students. They're not your normal junior age. They're all mature now. And they've had their kick at the pro can, so to speak, and had their opportunities and now are working on education. But, it's a fantastic hockey. And we just want to stay relevant in that world and stay up to speed. So, you know what? If the stars align, you got to get some breaks your way, but hopefully those breaks will happen. We have a good roster coming into this year, and we're looking forward to seeing them compete throughout the year.
Couple more, and then I'm going to toss it back to Jim if he has anything else. But I want to ask you about rugby. I love watching women's rugby, and the women's rugby program, where you are, women's rugby became fully sanctioned in 2002, I believe. And you guys have been the runner-up 4 times to St. FX. Talk about the women's rugby program and just women's rugby in general and how you've kind of seen it grow.
So for us, we had to make a change in women's rugby. Last year during the pandemic, I brought in a new coach, Emma Delory. Young coach, was an all-star at Acadia. We're in a tough conference where 2 of the national contenders in Acadia and St. FX every year nationally are in our conference, and we have to play them multiple times. Emma comes with a vast experience working with Rugby Nova Scotia. She's also a manager on the Team Canada national team that unfortunately can't go to nationals or worlds this year because they got pushed into 22. But just seeing her develop, we were fortunate even this fall because we had a sport bubble in Atlantic Canada where it said in the pandemic had sport continue on. We had 5 members of the national team come out and work with our girls the whole fall to train. They worked with Emma, who coached them at the national level, and be there. So you know what? I think you're going to see some bright things. She's got a roster of 20 new girls signed for this year coming in, brand new rookies, highlighted by a lot of talent from Nova Scotia. We have an international player from Hong Kong coming that was in their junior program. So I think we still got a lot of rungs at the ladder to climb when we get to X. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to be more competitive than we ever have been over the last couple of years. And it's a work in progress. These things can't happen overnight. It's laying the foundational piece. And I think this past year has really given us an opportunity in women's rugby to lay the foundation. And now we'll see when we apply come this fall if the improvement is there. And continue to support the improvement, continue to develop young 18-year-old girls as they come in and as they develop as women's rugby players, be those solid rugby players 2 or 3 years in. And once that depth is established, I'm sure we'll be able to compete with everybody in the country.
Just quickly talk about your soccer programs. The men's team, they last won a conference championship, I believe in 2011, but they have 13 championships. So the soccer program is pretty well established there. And the women's, they've won 2 conference championships. The last one was back in 2002. But just kind of talk about your soccer program a little bit and where you see that going.
I think it's going to improve. We're fortunate we have 2 good coaches in place. Marissa Colsey, who played her collegiate soccer at Coastal Carolina. She coached UBC to a national championship. She's their women's coach. She's doing good recruiting. Like when she came in, and that team has made the playoffs for the first time in the last couple of years under her leadership, but a really deep roster, like carrying 35, 36 girls on a roster. When she first got here prior to me, where 95% of the roster was Nova Scotia born. Now it's almost an exact flip over, where probably 75 to 80% of our roster comes from outside Nova Scotia, using her recruiting ties in Ontario and BC to bring some quality girls out here. But really excited about it. Again, it's a tough program. We got Cape Breton University in both men's and women's soccer that has a different level. And even their men's team is, if you look at their roster, they're not Canadian. They're mostly international. And that's a challenge in soccer, is getting the good mix of Canadian talent with international talent. But we're really looking for big things there. On the men's side, we got Masood Mert, our coach, who's actually splits times with us in the Wanderers of the CPL League. So he's in Winnipeg right now with the Canadian Professional Premier Soccer League with the Halifax franchise. He's assistant coach on that squad. But he's excited about the talent he's bringing in. And again, we gave a push in the semifinals in 19 fall, where we end up dropping in the second half against Cape Breton, who's gone on to win eventually the AUS title and medal at nationals. But we gave them a good run, and hopefully that experience with some of our student athletes will translate into a more veteran roster this year, and we're able to really definitely give them a challenge at the top.
Last one, women's volleyball. You guys have won the 3rd most conference championships with 6, the last being in 2012. Just talk about the women's volleyball program and where you see that going.
Well, I think we signed a key couple of recruits. We got Nada Hamdi this year, who comes from the Egyptian national volleyball team. So she just finished losing out on an Olympic berth, and I think they were playing in Ethiopia just last weekend. But she's ranked 61st in the world. She's joining us from afar. We also picked up Anika Jaraskovic, a Serbian player that played at University of Maryland Eastern Shore the last couple of years, but is moving educationally to do her MBA at St. Mary's in a graduate studies program. So we're fortunate to have those two. Olivia Bell, we got some good talent. Darren Russell has done a good job of keeping things here. The challenge here in Halifax is the two of the best university programs are literally a block apart in us and Dalhousie. So Rick Scott and the job he does there is great. And we lost them in the final back in 1920 of the AUS final. But at the end of the day, we're looking for good things. And it's like everything. It's after a pandemic year, how does the team mold together? I think that's in every sport. And we're seeing it even in June and July right now is how are these teams coming together at this point so that come September, they're ready to roll. And that's a challenge for the coaches and a challenge for the student athletes. And that's where we come in is how do we support this growth? How do we support them in the good times and the bad? And how do we kind of smooth out the bumps in the road so that things don't become mountains, they become speed bumps and we can move forward. But really excited about this, really excited to get back and see the Huskies on every field of play. You know what? It's just a year without sport has taught us sport's very important. Sports is a big equalizer in the world. Sport washes away a lot of the other issues we're dealing with the world. So it's going to be great to see it come back. And we're looking to see our Huskies do really well this year. And you know what? That's the role is that eventually I want to become the beast of the East where anything comes through St. Mary's and Halifax. We're not quite there yet, but we're hoping to build upon our past history and move it into a future and a new way of looking at things so that we can get there. And at the end of the day, see our student athletes graduate. We're very happy. This year is our first year where almost a third of our roster is academic all Canadians. And, it's the most since I've been there. Depending on some summer school courses, hopefully we hit 100. So out of 300 plus student athletes, over 100 of them have grade point averages of A+. That's a good thing. And to see them excel in the court and in the classroom is important to us. So really seeing that sort of sport. But for me, like I said earlier, this is a labor of love. You know what? You do it because you didn't want to get a real job. And at the end of the day, you know what? Every day I get to walk into a gym. We just started up with summer camps, little kid camps, as silly as it sounds. After a year and a summer last year where we didn't have anything, to see all those little bodies running around the place and learning from our student athletes and our coaches, it's kind of brings it back. You know what? The normalcy of the pandemic, it's not over, but you know what? There is a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
I know you mentioned you wanted to briefly talk about cross-country track. You know, I'll give you a quick little opportunity to talk about cross-country, and then I'll toss it back to Jim.
Yeah, so again, another sport we have, along with all our club sports and everything else. You know what we're looking for? We have one of the best distance runners in Atlantic Canada, Andrew Peveril, who's won the last number of titles in cross-country, also won the 5 and 1,500 meters at the AUS indoor track level, but he's right now in Ontario training because we have no races going here. Ontario has a few races in the Toronto area, so he's down there. I think he's racing at the Pan Am Games Center tonight at York University. But really, about the work we do is that's another byproduct of those sports. A lot of times, even we have a lot of football players competing in that level because it's a second semester sport. It's indoor track. But really doing the work they're doing and looking for big things there. Looking forward to the fall of 22, where us and Dal will host the USports national titles here. So it's kind of one of my interests I did at Sault College in my past, where we host these nationals and provincial titles. It's kind of our first foray into track and field again. So I'm really excited about those opportunities. So again, like everybody else, our student athletes are working hard. They're chomping at the bit to get back at sport. I think that's everybody, at no matter what the level, they're chomping to get back at sport. So it's great to see that light at the end of the tunnel because of everybody doing their job in Canada, getting vaccinated and getting things done so that we can all get back to some sense of normal.
Actually, I almost forgot to ask you about the most important sport that we should talk about, and that's football. I saved it right for the end on purpose. So sorry, Jim. I know you got to go here, but football. So obviously, the history at St. Mary's is legendary. One of the most historically successful football programs throughout Canada, with 8 Vanier Cup appearances, 3 wins. You know, a very, very detailed history there. You know, kind of it's been an up and down past few years for St. Mary's. I think that's a fair thing to say. Obviously, football is a deep passion of yours. Just kind of talk about the football program a little bit and, you know, where you see it going in the next couple of years.
Well, I think it's on the rise. And I think similar to basketball, there's a lot of transfer across Canada in that sport, which presents its own challenges. But we got a good coach in James Colsey. We did some work in the pandemic year to stabilize the offensive side of the ball, bringing in Tommy Kanichis, who was at the University of Waterloo. He's made the trek out here to help run the offense, and it's his young coach, and that's part of the role too, is developing our people into the next bigger, better things, whether that's St. Mary's or somewhere else. So really, we got some talent on the defensive side of the ball. I think the conference, like a lot of football, missing a whole season, it's going to be slow starting off. Might be a little bit sloppy at times, but really for us, we don't have a bye until 5 games in. So at the end of the day, we're going to have to be out of the hopper quick. Capitalize early on some wins, and then like our last season in 19, we didn't make the playoffs. We lost our last regular season game not to make the playoffs, but before that, we're both in the AUS final. So our goal is to get back to the AUS final and then move on from there. And you know what, start going back to some of the historical days of the UTEC and the Blake Nils and Steve Samaras, where these guys were ultimate national competitors. So that's the goal here. But with everything else, it's laying the foundation like every sport. And I know people want to win right away, but winning without a foundation doesn't give you any longevity. So we've been really working hard on all the years here, and especially last year, is laying those foundational pieces and developing those first-year linemen and players. They're not going to play right away, but keep them in the program, getting them stronger, getting them bigger, so that in year 2, year 3, they're starting to contribute. And that's the challenge, is that high school football, for all the great players, it becomes a bigger they become the big fish in a small pond in high school. Now they're going to become the small fish in the big pond. And that acclimatization and their development is important from 18 to 19 to 20 years old. and that's where we win. So I think at the end of the day, we've been working hard. Like I said, they were on the field this morning. We're going to have a young quarterback on offense. And if that can start clicking and limit our turnovers, our defense do the job, I think we'll be right in the mix of competing for an AUS title.
Jim?
Yeah, Scott, I do got to go, and I know you want to get going too. The one thing I don't think we talked about enough, and one of the things that I kind of relate with you when I think of you, Sault Steelers. Talk a little bit about your time with the Sault Steelers. I don't think we talked about it enough. Some of the great players you coached, some of the good times you had, a lot of the success you guys had. Just talk quickly about that.
For sure. You know what? Because I didn't have anything better to do in the summers, I decided to help coach the Steelers, and I started even when we were the Storm. Playing in the NFC, making a revival in the NFC, and something that Jim would have played in the early 80s. The Steelers, as an organization, took some years off, but you know what? It was great. We culminated with some very successful championships, but just importantly, I think one of the highlights of the Steelers was, I don't think anybody remembers this. I can't remember what year it was, whether it was 2007. I believe it was. We're down in Oakville playing the Longhorns, who we all know, we all played against them. The perennial favorites, got all the talent in the world, and we win the game. And with a group of ragtag 25 guys on the road in the early years and coaching with Barry Russian, that was the first tide that turned. And from that point forward, we had our successes in winning the multiple national championships. But you know what? For me, it was a great time to stay connected with some of the guys, see them develop and create great friendships over the time. You know what? Seeing some of the kids that you either played, some guys, I would coach guys I played with. I also coached kids that I coached at high school, but I also coached guys I coached against or played against in high school. So it was really great. And to see some of the players that returned to us after their university redemption, like the Greg Torrances and those guys that really helped get us through those middle years. But really, like the decades old, I'll talk about the blacksmith in Sweden for Prentice and Michael to play for all those years. That was kind of special too. And guys like I coached with Matty Tucker and those guys like Stewie Waite that I played against, like these are all guys that they're all Siouxites. And to see the Sioux do well on national stage and with that senior men's football, you say what it is, but it's still competitive. And you know what? For a lot of years there, we're one of the best teams in Canada. And that's a small part because of me, but a bigger part because of the heart and some of the guys that weren't even living the Sioux that would make the trip up to play on weekends. You know what? The guys that were in their 40s that were still playing and going to work the next week all banged up and hobbling around. But you know what? Really great times. And for me, it was more about the atmosphere that was created in the Sioux at that time. It was always great to see the fans come out on a Saturday night at Rocky Beach Field and, you know what? Be entertained. A lot of great people on both sides of the ball, a lot of good friends that from teams in the NFC I don't even know I still keep in touch with. So it was all good times, but you know, I was proud to represent the Sioux. I was fortunate to coach with my high player. So coaching with Barry Rusher for me was kind of a special piece because he had coached me in high school, and I had the opportunity as a young man to coach with him in the ranks there. And you know what, really helped out. Then down the road, coaching with guys like Seth Kahn and everything else like that. That was just fun. And at the end of the day, you know, it was enjoyable. And you know what, the Steeler reunions in about 10 or 12 years are going to be fun shows when everybody's old, telling the old war stories. I definitely will return to the Sioux for one of those reunions because I think that group of cats really was special in my time, but it was also special for the Sioux.
Okay, Scott, thanks a lot. I really do got to go. I got to go get my second shot of vaccine.
Jim, you're doing your part. That's all we want.
I'm trying to do my part. Scott, two things I remember here quickly before you go. We always joke around, me and you, about you being an innovator and you bringing the forward pass to high school football at Cora in the Jason Ruley days, and we always laugh about that. And then you brought to Sault Minor football, you brought the 2-minute offense where you would run one play every 2 minutes. So I always think of those things. It's kind of funny. And thanks a lot for joining us, Scott. I'll pass it on to Bono, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Jimmy, thanks for the opportunity. Good to see you, my friend. And you know what? Thank you for doing your part in getting your vaccine.
Oh, and you too, Scott. Thanks a lot. Good talking to you. I'll see you guys.
Scott, it sounds good, Jim. Scott, I got three more quick little things for you. The first one, and this is just curiosity for me. How much recruiting do you actually do as the AD? Do you do a lot of recruiting or do you leave it to the coaches?
I basically leave it to the coaches. The challenge this year in USports with recruiting is up until today, it just got lifted today. We had a recruitment moratorium So that meant no travel. So we couldn't fly potential student athletes and recruits into the country. Normally, I make myself around. I'm really about telling them the story about what we're trying, the vision we're trying to build, and what their part in it, no matter what the sport is. It's really to just jump on and say a welcome on behalf of the university to the potential student athletes and their family. This year, of course, had to be all virtual. So I probably spent countless hours jumping to Zoom calls and recruitment calls with different individual students, whether it be individually or group settings. But you know what? It's just telling my story a bit too. And you know what? I can relate my experiences, especially for those prospective students that aren't from East Coast, of how great a place it is out here. I see in the chat there, Shaw was commenting about Oak Island. Yes, I've been to Oak Island. I haven't found the treasure yet.
So, Scott, one last thing for me is, I'm a recruit, right? I'm just a normal person. I'm a recruit, and I have a choice between St. Mary's or another school in the eastern, on the East Coast. Why St. Mary's?
Well, a couple of things. You know what? The history and what we're trying to build is important, but what you got to realize is our campus is on one city block. So you're 5 minutes, and I always say this, is if you live in residence in your first year, from your window, you can see where you're going to study, where you're going to eat and sleep there, but you're also going to see where you play from your window. Our campus, our residence buildings surround our football field, so you're going to see everything. You can walk from a setting, whether it's the field, whether it's the gym, whether it's the ice rink. Within 5 minutes, you can be on campus. We're not a huge campus. We're only about 6,000 students. Our goal is to get to 8, so we're a mid-range university. Has everything. And you know what? Halifax is beautiful. We're the biggest city east of Montreal, and it's not a big city. It has everything you want out of a big city, but really with a small town charm. Like literally, if you live on campus, you can walk the downtown core, and all the nightlife that you'd want is all within walking distance. You don't have to buy a vehicle. Everything else, the campus is very navigatable. And you know what? It's just a beautiful city. You wake up in the morning and you don't realize this. I didn't realize it until I moved out here. The ocean air is a different air. It's fresh and it takes your breath away kind of. Once in a while we get hurricanes, but that's always fun for the course too. Unless you're a kicker who back in 19 fall when Hurricane Dorian hit, I was talking to him 2 days after, and we were closed down for about a week recovering from that storm. And a tree had fell on his truck. So at least insurance paid for his truck. And at the end of the day, but that does happen once in a while where we get this hurricanes blowing in. I'm sure you've seen the cranes topple on top of buildings out here and everything else like that. But it is, you know what, there's a maritime charm. You know what, historical city. If you're into history, you know what, this is where military bases and all the world wars. And it really, it's straight up. It's, we're not far away. Like, I'm 8 hours away from Boston. So you know what? As soon as that border opens up, I can go to Fenway and watch the Red Sox play. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you know what? It's everything in a big city, but it's not that big. So that's why St. Mary's is there. And you know what? We've been around for 215 plus years, and I don't think we're going anywhere.
Yeah, you know what? Part of my love about that area is I've been obsessed with Oak Island since university. I did a thesis on Oak Island back before Oak Island was popular. So I have a whole love affair with that place. So that's
I guarantee you. When I'm over there this summer, I usually go over there. It's kind of a neat place. You don't get to go to the filming, but you see kind of history there. I'll grab you something from Oak Island and send it to you.
That'd be unreal. And also, speaking of the Sioux connection a little bit, it's not really the Sioux connection, but Traverse City, Michigan, right? The Laginas who run the show are really, a little bit of a connection there.
We have a number of faculty members at St. Mary's in the geology program that work on the Oak Island series along with their researchers. So it's kind of a historic place. Like literally 300 years ago, there was pirate ships that would come into the harbor. Like if you think of the movies and everything else we see, big harbor town, big maritime town. So like some of those ships would all venture through here, coming across from England and the old country. They would usually make port in Halifax and work their way down to the eastern seaboard of the United States. So, historically, it's a great place. Like I said, I literally found another fort that I didn't know about. In the city, we have the Citadel, which is one of the biggest Canadian heritage sites, and it was the old fort of Halifax up on the top of the hill, and it's still there today. So it's a great little place. You know what? And you know what? It has the activity. It's not a small town, but it is a big city, and we've got a little piece of it with St. Mary's.
So before I get to the, our last question, which is always our last question, I'm going to ask you a yes or no question. Is the treasure still there?
I believe it is.
Okay, I love it. Me too. That's what I hope anyway.
I believe it. I think there's more treasure in this province than there is in most of Canada.
Yeah.
Just because it goes back, like even if you think of the Eastern Seaboard, it goes back to time before the time of Columbus.
For sure. So the Gray family comes home for a summer vacation, and they're all sitting around a table, and they have to order pizza. Where is the Gray family ordering pizza from in Sault Ste. Marie?
Wherever you're sponsored, who's your sponsor?
No, we don't have one. That's why it's an honest question. Where's the best pizza in Sault Ste. Marie according to the Gray family?
So according to us, there's two things. And let's talk about pizza first, but also something we missed out here that we cannot replicate, we cannot find. So the pizza of our choice would have been Aurora's Pizza.
Okay.
Can't find out here. But the one thing I cannot find, and I've gone to hundreds of delis and butchers and everything else, I can't find Pinot sausages. So that's something that we will always travel back with when we visit, is because it's not replicable in Atlantic Canada. And yet again, we'll hoard these things in our freezer and use them as special occasions because we can't find them out here.
Maybe we need to send you a pack or two.
tell Benny Pino I could get a sponsor for him out here. You just got to pay it in sausages.
That's right. Well, Scott, listen, man, on a personal note, you've always been very grateful, and you've always been very supportive of me as a football player and as a coach. Anytime I ever needed anything, you were always one of the first guys I would go to, and you were always more than willing to help. And just the amount of work that you've done here in Sault Ste. Marie, and not only you, but the amount of work that Tanya has done here with Sault Minor Football, and just the presence that your family had here in the Sioux. You guys are greatly missed, but you're representing the Sioux extremely well. And you know what? It's we're very thankful for what you've done for this city and your family has done for this city. And just to kind of see the success that you're having right now, it's really inspiring to a lot of people. And you know what? It goes to show that hard work, dedication, and just being a good guy can really get you places. So congratulations to you and your family. Nothing but continued success. And you know what? You always have a huge support group here and a huge support system. So thank you for all you've done, and thank you for everything that you guys continue to do to represent the city well.
Thanks, Tony. You know what? The Sioux, like I said earlier, is always home. And you know what? There's a little piece in the Sioux in us every day. We're just trying to change a little bit of East Coast into Sioux Coast. So we'll make that happen. You know what?
Absolutely.
We didn't do it for any of the accolades. We didn't do it. We did it because we loved it. And you know what? Everybody to us in the sports community in Sault Ste. Marie's family. And that's what the important piece is. So you know what? Family sometimes leaves and moves away, but we're never far from your heart. So we're always thinking of you guys, and it's great to see you guys keeping the sports scene alive in Sault Ste. Marie. Looking forward to seeing Ontario get high school sports back, so you guys have a bit more to talk about, and then the college and university sports too. So you know what? Anytime, you know what? It was a pleasure connecting with you guys tonight. You know what? Stay well, be well, and until we talk again, we're good.
Sounds good, bud. Good job. And you know what? After you guys win your first national championship with you there, you got to come on again. So
I will definitely. All
awesome.
Right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you watching, and thanks so much for joining us today, Scotty. Take care, bud.